everybody. Welcome back to Kavanaugh's Corner. Today on the channel, I have a very special review for you here. I pre-ordered this on vinegarsyndrome.com, and it is one of their new exclusive releases. This is a special edition of this film, and this is a movie that I remember seeing many, many years ago, and I mean, it's got to be over 25 years ago now. I think I saw it on HBO for the first time, and it was a movie that really caught my attention. And as a younger gentleman, this movie was very entertaining to me when I was a kid. It's one of these movies that is very much ahead of its time. Some of it's aged like wine, some of it's aged like milk, but as a whole, I think this movie is really entertaining, and it has some very memorable performances as well as some pretty spectacular direction. And that is a film called Virtuosity. And Virtuosity here came out in 1995. And I was definitely too young to watch this when it was released, so I didn't see it until like the early 2000s. But even then, I was probably too young to see this. But it's a movie that I think is a fun action film. And again, the sci-fi elements, although some of which now look extraordinarily dated, the themes of like AI and virtual reality and things like that are actually like real now. And like most of the stuff you see in this movie, of course, the whole biomechanical stuff that Russell Crowe gets turned into in this film, you know, the nanobots and stuff like that. There is some of that stuff in real life, but as a whole, the movie is pretty shockingly prophetic in certain ways. And I enjoy this movie. It's not the best written film ever. There's actually some pretty glaring plot holes in it. And some of the writing is just extraordinarily cliched and cheesy. Denzel Washington as the lead, you can't not like him in this film. He's just a very likable character. And Russell Crowe as the villain, I mean, he is just a complete lunatic in this, and it's so over the top. He chews the scenery in literally every scene that he's in, but he's just great in this movie. And this is the special edition here from Vinegar Syndrome, and it came in this really ornate, completely illustrated box here, and it has this magnetic tab that opens up, and then you have the actual disc inside here. So this actually, I'll close this up, this is actually the slip cover here with Denzel with his dreads and beard at the beginning of the movie. And again, fully illustrated again. And it has this really nice matte, kind of like soft touch kind of cover with an embossed kind of title there. And then it slides open and it actually has a reversible cover. The other side of the cover here, I actually flipped it to the original theatrical poster. The other side of the cover is actually matching the outside case here. So that's pretty cool. And it is a 2-disc set. So you have a 4K disc as well as a standard Blu-ray. Now, all the special features besides the commentaries are on the standard Blu-ray here. But this is a completely restored version of the film. It actually has Dolby Vision and the original 5.1 surround audio track, and it was restored from the original 35mm camera negative, so that's actually pretty cool. It also has a 2.0 stereo soundtrack and 2 new commentary tracks featuring, one of them's featuring Brett Leonard and Jim Branscombe from Cinematic Void, and a secondary one with Walter Chaw, a film historian. So that's pretty cool. And this actually also contains a really in-depth booklet here with a bunch of articles and photos from the film. And you can see it actually has like a little thing of Sid 6.7 here and the little capsule in his head. That's actually pretty cool. And then you can see there's another shot of Russell Crowe from behind, but that one's See-through, that one's not. So that one's actually pretty cool. I got that X-ray of him. That's pretty neat. So without further ado, we're going to talk about this new 4K transfer of Virtuosity. We're going to talk about the picture quality, the audio quality, and all the new special features that are on here, because there are quite a few of them besides those commentaries. So first and foremost, let's talk about the picture quality here for Virtuosity. This is, as I mentioned, an all-new 4K remaster done by Vinegar Syndrome for this release, and they did use the original 35mm camera negative. And it does have Dolby Vision HDR as well as HDR10 compatibility. Now, I watched this on my LG C4 OLED with Dolby Vision and everything, and I have to say, I was really surprised by how awesome this 4K transfer was. There is super high detail level. And one thing that works with this film is that there are a lot of darker nighttime scenes, and the black levels on this disc are actually really impressive. It looked amazing all throughout. Detail level was super high, as I mentioned. The colors and everything in this film are so much more lifelike and vibrant than they were before. And here is the previous Blu-ray release. And comparing that 4K to this older release, there is absolutely no comparison whatsoever. This release is actually from 2015, so it's almost 10 years old at this point. I can safely say that this new transfer puts that to shame. There is no softness in the film unless it was actually shot that way. Sid's many suits and the makeup effects that were done on Russell Crowe in this movie, they all look astonishing now. It was very, very impressive stuff to see. However, the one thing that comes along with a new 4K transfer is the fact that the CGI in this movie now is really, really much more noticeable. And this is 1995 CGI. And one thing I did learn by watching the special features of this film, something I didn't know previously, is that a lot of the graphics, CGI stuff that was done for this movie, even the computer graphics that you see on the screens all throughout the film, were done on basically consumer-grade computer technology for the time, which were computers with Pentium 90 processors, which, if you were around during that time period, that's an amazing achievement that they were able to do that. But as a whole, the CGI in a lot of scenes is purposefully not that great looking, especially the VR sequences. And it's supposed to look like that because they're in a computer-generated environment. But if you've seen, movies like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 and things like that, movies that maybe even came before this film, and of course all of the computer-generated stuff that's come after this, like the Matrix films and God knows everything else that's been made as of recently, all the Marvel films, there is a shocking kind of charm to how bad some of the CGI is in this movie. But it's nostalgically kind of funny now. Like, watching it kind of adds to the charm of the film, in my opinion. It's really interesting to see, and I got a kick out of seeing it. But just know that the 4K leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination, and those computer sequences, especially the CGI effects that are done, some of them look really, really great, and some of them have not aged well at all. So just keep that in mind. It's very much a film from the mid-1990s, but I enjoyed it. I thought the movie looked phenomenal. Again, this transfer is astonishing, and the grain level of the film is actually pretty solid as well. It's a light to medium grain all throughout. I'm glad they didn't overuse digital noise reduction with this transfer, but they mitigated it to the point where it wasn't extraordinarily distracting. It's just enough. It has a very filmic look, and I really like the look of this movie. It's a great, great transfer on this from Vinegar Syndrome. I was very, very impressed. Now, as for the audio quality for this guy, I ended up watching it with the original DTS HD 5.1 master audio track, And I have to say, it was excellent. The audio on this movie, especially with the surround sound, if you have a good surround sound system, sound effects were perfectly placed. The music in this movie is a lot of kind of 90s techno music, a lot of roaring guitars and synthesizers and stuff, but it sounded really, really great and really brought me back to when this movie came out. It was really impressive stuff. The dialogue was crystal clear. There's a sequence that takes place in a stadium where actually, it's kind of funny, there's a UFC fight taking place. This is many years before the popularity of UFC really grew like it is now. It's a huge thing now. That sequence, you can hear the crowd chanting all around you. And the kapow thing, I don't know what the kapow thing is with that. That's just it's one of the strangest choices I think ever made in a movie. But the kapow thing really engulfs the audio system, and it's really impressive. You can hear little things, little people saying things all around you. And again, the crazy sound effects of Sid 6.7 all throughout the movie when he's like rebuilding his limbs and you know, like growling and making these crazy faces. It works. Like, again, the audio on this is really, really spectacular. So that's another plus with this, is that the audio really goes well with the craziness of the picture, and it sounds great. That original 5.1, it's awesome. Really, really great stuff there. Now, in terms of special features, this actually does have a ton of new special features as well. There is a whole secondary Blu-ray disc, as I mentioned earlier, that's just filled with special features. There is a new interview with director Brett Leonard on the making of the film. That was very insightful. There's another featurette called Ahead of Its Time, which is an interview with the producer, Gary Lucchese, I think is how I pronounce his name. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name there, Gary. But that's an actually really interesting featurette because of the fact that he really focuses on the business of filmmaking and his comments on the making of the film and how it was not really a big hit and what, you know, they did after the film and all that. It's really actually interesting to hear that. It's not a perspective you get a lot on these special features. And then my favorite piece is a 38-minute little featurette that is basically a video call with Brett Leonard, Kelly Durkin, and Georg Berger. And those guys are, well, the director is Brett Leonard, but the other two people there are actually the people that worked on the graphics of the film and some of the CGI and things that you see in the movie. So it's actually pretty impressive that these guys did this on a fairly mid-level budget. They did, like I mentioned, they did all these effects with regular consumer-grade computers, which is now the standard, but back then it was kind of unheard of. So that's a really interesting thing. And I also like Georg's commentary during that little featurette about the dangers of AI, because AI is actually something that's mentioned a lot in Virtuosity. And so hearing him talk about modern day stuff like ChatGPT and stuff like that, it's actually very, very interesting to hear. And then there's also a interview with screenwriter Eric Berndt, and the gentleman who wrote the film. That's interesting to hear his commentary on what he thought of the final product of the film. And there's also a featurette on assembling the cast of the film, which includes casting director Deborah Aquila and supporting actors Steven Spinella and Mary Morrow. It's really cool to see all those people together again as well, talk about their experience making the film and the aftermath and what they think of the movie itself. So again, great stuff here. The special features are awesome. I'm glad that this movie finally got a release that it deserves. Again, not a big hit. It's not the greatest science fiction action film ever made. But I enjoy it for what it is, and I love the fact that a lot of the stuff in this movie is actually kind of coming true now, and we're kind of experiencing the dawn of like AI and virtual reality and stuff. It's a fun film, and I'm glad it got the recognition by Vinegar Syndrome here, and this is just an absolutely gorgeous box set here. I'm glad to have this as part of my collection. It's really, really great stuff. So if you're interested in getting Virtuosity, I'll leave a link in the description below, and you can use that link to pick it up. Not sure if this is actually on Amazon or not, but I do love the fact that Vinegar Syndrome is putting a lot more of these forgotten films or sometimes underappreciated films on 4K and Blu-ray, and this is VSU.11 in their catalog. So great stuff there. Loved it. It's an awesome transfer of, in my opinion, a pretty underrated movie. So that's all I've got for today for Kavanaugh's Corner. If you like this review, definitely give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below to see more reviews like this. I wish you guys all the best. Please stay safe, keep collecting, and take it easy.